welcome back to another episode of the Black Create Connect podcast. And this podcast episode is a bit different today. It's not the usual me interviewing or understanding a bit more about Black professional journeys. It's more about understanding, I guess, our perspectives on something that was recently put out. But before we get into that, I just want everyone to introduce themselves. So I am Alicia Richardson, the founder of Black Create Connect, your host for today. And we're recording at Mango Studios LDN. Shout them out. Thank you so much.
Hi, I am Chantelle. Thank you for the lovely intro there to the chat that we're going to have today. I'm Chantelle Lewis. I'm the founder, or co-founder rather, of Mango Studios LDN. So we are an innovation hub for startups, and we have a podcast studio, photography studio, and a venue available for events in Finsbury Park in London.
Hi. Oh, gosh, going after you two. No pressure. But I'm Nadine, and day-wise, I work as a data and integration lead at Google. But I have the pleasure of being part of this discussion, my best friend's podcast, and I very much enjoyed Woman King. So I'm looking forward to basically depicting the film with these lovely people.
Yeah.
And my name is Akin. I'm a creative director. I work in broadcast and advertising, and I'm looking forward to the session.
Thank you everyone for your introductions. So basically, let's give you all some context as to why we're even here today. So I hadn't seen the Woman King until last week, and I saw you made a comment about Woman King in the chat, and it was, so for those that don't know, we have a WhatsApp group chat, and there's loads of conversations that happen in the chat, and she mentioned something about not being a massive fan of the Woman King. Chantelle did, and then there was some back and forth with some individuals in the chat about, you know, the meanings, perspectives, and whatnot. So we're here today to depict it and to really have a conversation about it. But for those that don't know what the Woman King is, or you know the context of it, I'm going to quickly read a little summary from Wikipedia because I don't want to get anything wrong, any facts wrong. So just for those that don't know, The Woman King is a 2022 American historical epic film. Is it American history or African history? Anyway,
African history.
Yeah. About the Agoji, the all-female warrior unit that protected the West African kingdom of Dahomey. During the 17th to the 19th centuries, set in the 1820s, the film stars Viola Davis, shout out Viola because she was all wicked, as a general who trains the next generation of warriors to fight their enemies. It's directed by Gina Prince Bythewood. I think it's Bythewood. She's black. And written by Dana Stevens, who is not. Based on a story she wrote with Maria Bello. The film also stars Thuso Bedu, I hope I said the name correctly, Lashana Lynch, Sheila Atim, and John Boyega. So, is that a decent summary?
That was a really good summary.
Yeah,
okay,
let's sums it up.
Thank you, Wikipedia. I guess to get started then, first question is, why did you guys watch the film? Like, what made you want to watch it? Whoever can go first.
To be honest with you, the only reason that I watched the film was just the response by people in the Black community kind of hailing it as some kind of like a victory for the Black community. So I was like similar to what they had with Black Panther a few years ago when that came out. There was like a big, well, wow, this is for us, for our people. So I was like, let's see what all this hype is about.
So that's why you watched it?
Yeah.
Okay. What about you?
Well, my 3 reasons was I love Viola Davis, for one. I think she's amazing. So I wanted to support my sis. Second, obviously, the fact that it's a Hollywood film depicting African history. I just wanted to be part of it and just see how they would have put that into a film. And I guess the last thing is it was a date, and it was just a nice it was just a nice film to watch with the partner. So I can't really complain, can I?
So my reasons for watching it, I've always been one to kind of advocate for us creating films or narratives that paint our point of view, our own perspective. And also I'm really super interested in Black stories that kind of exist outside of that paradigm between Black and white. So it's our own history, and we do have a history that exists outside of oppression. Also, I do know quite a lot about the story itself.
Okay.
Because I come from a region of West Africa that's in very close proximity, and the history of my people is very much intertwined with the history of the Dahomey Empire.
Okay.
So I do know a lot about it. So when I saw the trailer, I was very curious as to how they would play the story.
Right, okay.
So that's it. That's my.
Can I just ask, how is your background in West Africa linked to Dahomey and...
So I'm Yoruba. I'm from Nigeria.
Yeah.
So my subgroup or ethnic group, I don't want to use the word tribe because we're much, much bigger than a tribe.
Yeah.
I'm Yoruba. So within the film itself, the main villains are actually Yoruba.
Yeah.
The Oyo Empire.
Yeah.
So our story, we're kind of cast as the main villains within the narrative, which I thought was
Right.
quite interesting.
Right.
So as our relationship as Yoruba people or the Oyo Empire to the Dahomeans, which is quite interesting.
They were Yoruba demons.
They were Yoruba, for real, they were Yoruba demons. Yeah, Yoruba demons, yeah.
That's
We
Interesting
can confirm.
context.
Yeah.
Interesting
Historically,
context.
they are Yoruba
Yeah.
demons.
Oh,
I'm so sorry for any Yorubas that listen to this and they feel offended.
yeah.
You
It's
might,
in
need,
history.
you might need
It
to
is in
explain.
history.
You might need to explain what Yoruba demons means.
Okay, so for those that don't know what a Yoruba demon is, historically Yoruba men have built up a particular reputation that is associated with demonic behaviour.
Now you gotta go a bit deeper than
Yeah.
that. You gotta,
Maybe don't dig yourself a hole.
Sorry.
you
right
gotta
now.
dig a bit. You gotta explain a bit more than
Okay,
that.
go on. Someone else said elaborate on that because that's my
It's
explanation.
not me. I ain't doing it.
Mm.
It's a bias that everyone's created around Yoruba men. Not every
It's a
Yoruba man.
stereotype.
Yeah, it's a stereotype. That's what it is.
But actually, I'm a bit nosy. Out of curiosity, you said it was interesting how they depicted Yoruba.
Yeah.
But why was it interesting? Did it reflect the stories that you were shared as a child?
No, it's this historical fact. It doesn't reflect historical fact at all.
Right.
Partially,
Oh, it
but
doesn't.
so this is a lot of the problems that the film has kind of come. Well, a lot of the problems that the film has is that it treats historical fact in a certain kind of way. It kind of, and a lot of Hollywood films do it. It's just that this time they haven't kind of gotten away with it, and it's kind of backfired. But we'll kind of come to that a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Very interesting. Disclaimer, I love my Yoruba people, okay? Just to put it out there. But okay, so to answer for, let me answer myself why I watched it. Obviously because of the debate that we're having today as well. But it's been on my to watch list. Viola Davis, I've always been a big fan of her. And I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea what to expect when watching it. So I was just curious to kind of see what is this about, what's the hype about. And yeah, I went to go watch it. So the next question is, why do you think it was created? Why do you think it was put together? So you can have a minute, anyone can jump in. What was the reason?
Well, I shared my controversial view, which was, I think it's part of the agenda to push this narrative that black women are masculine, and the sub-agenda or the second agenda is to eradicate femininity as a power.
That's why you think it was created. That's the reason why you think it was created. So what's the motive behind that? Who do you think has this motive to put this narrative out there?
You want to go deep, innit?
But
You
we're-
want to go
we're
deep.
here.
I think we should.
So basically, the way that I see things, or my understanding, is that there's an elite group that run the world essentially, and the elite group is like, I'm not talking about prime ministers or presidents. It's above that. It's higher than that. I'm not talking about Illuminati. Again, it's above that. It's like there's an elite group that run the general world, if that makes sense. So there's certain agendas that they will push out there to basically change society so they can control people in a certain way. So, for example, you have one of the world agendas is depopulation, because if there's too many people, it's harder to control people. So they want to make sure that people are not reproducing as frequently as they were before, because too many people, the harder it is to control people. So they'll have lots of different things, narratives they put out there to promote, to stop healthy couples and relationships forming so that healthy families will stand. Because a healthy family is the biggest block for them being able to control. Because you need to be a broken person that needs somebody that you're seeking influence from external sources, then you can be controlled. That's what I meant by when I say agendas that are out there to push these certain narratives.
So what I'm curious to know is, how does that benefit them pushing out, if they were pushing out this agenda? So let's go with the theory that they are for a second. What's the benefit of that?
Let's just focus on the black thing, because
Yeah.
So less black women will get married, less black women will have children, less black women will go on to have legacy. So it kind of just gets rid of black women in a sense, because they don't really have any use to the people, what they're trying to do.
Okay, cool. So just so I understand and I make sure I get your theory correct. you feel like the film was created to put this idea into us, for black women to then feel like we should be more masculine and we probably shouldn't have children and shouldn't get married. Is that the narrative that?
I think that's a subconscious narrative for the
Right.
black women, but as well as that, it's for the masses. So it's for because white people are watching it, Asian people are watching it, men are watching it, children are, well, not children, I think it's a 15, but younger people are watching it. Older people are watching it. So it's for them to have a perception of black women. Oh, black women are tough. Black women are hard. Like, they're tough. They're hard ass. Look at their story in this. So it's like a subconscious bias on either side. So as black women watching. So again, there's so am I skipping too
No.
There's a scene in the movie when one of the girls is crying. Is it Violet? One of the characters says to the girl, you know what I'm talking about? She says, "Your tears mean nothing. Don't cry. Like, what are you crying for? Your tears mean nothing." And I know a lot of black women struggle with expressing their emotions freely, with crying. So when you're a black woman that has struggled with just being emotional, when you watch that, it's gonna make you, I shouldn't cry. But do you know what I mean? On a subconscious level.
But on that note, I feel like within context, we're retelling how it was. So understand where you're coming from, but understandably, that probably is how it was back then. If you were a warrior as a woman, you have to get on with it. You have to keep going. That's the story. So I feel like it would be disingenuous for them to say in that scene, "Oh no, it's okay to cry," because that's not what female warriors were taught to do back then.
Are you just basically saying this narrative shouldn't have been pushed out in the first place? Like, we shouldn't have been focusing on this vocal moment in history. Potentially, we could have looked at other areas.
Yeah, because then what was the point of that scene?
Yeah,
because I hear what you're saying. Yeah, that's true. But it's like, do we have to emphasize that? Do we have to have a whole written, scripted scene of that moment?
Yeah.
Why are we pushing that?
Definitely. And I feel you, from an external perspective, there are a lot of people that categorize black women as not being emotionally available, being strong, being hard work. And facts, black women are seen as the least attractive out of all races when it comes to men and who they want to date. And it very much comes down to the fact that men think that we're going to be hard work. And I do feel like potentially some of the different examples that were shared in that film may have validated that assumption. Do I feel like they were pushing the narrative out there in that respect? I don't know, but I understand where you're coming from. I feel like it was more embracing diversity. I think Hollywood, for a long time now, have been obviously pushing all these white love stories. And with everyone trying to move to this woke movement, they are trying to basically put black people on a platform, which is why they've released Black Panther, for instance, and why obviously Woman King and then all these other films that include ethnic minorities are now being put forward. So that's why I personally think Woman King was created, just to help in terms of depicting other people outside of the white race. But I understand that they could have done it in a different way, where potentially we wouldn't be categorized as that angry black woman, which is very much our stereotype.
I mean, my feeling, and I can see where you're coming from when you talk about this agenda, and I think I kind of, to some degree, kind of see and agree with that. I think the genesis of this film were the two producers. I think the two producers had been developing the idea of doing this film. I don't know if it was before Black Panther or just after Black Panther, because when people saw Black Panther and it came out and it was successful, all of a sudden there's an impetus to actually create something off of the back of it. And of course, the what's it called, the warriors, I can't remember what they're called, the warriors in Black Panther, the female warriors in Black Panther. They kind of stood out as very enigmatic and very powerful and strong, and they were beautiful and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, oh, we've got the real story that we can use. So the producers came up. I think they may have come up with it beforehand, and then the success of Black Panther gave them more wind behind the sails to sell this idea. And I think from their point of view, it was a feminist story in terms of these are these very strong women that exist in a male-dominated world, and they've stood up for something in a way in which we associate physical strength and dominance with male energy. So it was women taken out of this male world and showing attributes that are considered traditionally as male and actually dominating and making something out of it. So if we look at it from the point of view of two white producers who are trying to project a feminist message that women can basically do the same thing as men, even better, it kind of ticks that box.
Mm.
But again, when you're creating a narrative based on historical context and you're not immersed in the history and the implications of that context in a world that you're very unfamiliar with, which is the political sphere of Black people, you're not immersed in it. There are certain things you're going to be blindsided by. And I think that's effectively what happened is they took an agenda, found a historical narrative that kind of supported it, played it out in a world that they didn't really understand. And a lot of the kind of backlash came from this blindsidedness. And I'm surprised that Viola Davis or people around her weren't able to kind of figure out that this was going to become a problem. So that's my angle on it.
Okay, that's interesting.
And the one thing I will say is when I saw the trailer, I remember showing the trailer to my wife. I saw the trailer and I was like, this is going to be a problem. That is literally what I said when I saw the trailer quite a few months ago. I said, this film is going to... absolutely. I said, this film is going to be a problem. It's like, the way I would describe it is if someone made a film about the Japanese during the Second World War and depict the Japanese as protecting saving the sort of like East Asian from an invading force, that would be jarring. To a lot of people, they were like, nah, that's rubbish. And that's effectively what they kind of did with the narrative is they took these characters out of context and played them out to be something that they weren't really.
How do we have evidence of that though? Because we weren't there. I understand that it's your culture and your background, but how do we know that they really took them out of context?
Yeah, there's more than, I mean, it's not that long ago. It's just like, we're talking about the 1800s.
But they did exist. Like,
they
facts,
did.
the Dahomey Amazon warriors existed.
Yeah, they did.
So
when I say take out of context, so one of the central problems of the film was depicting, when you watch the very first trailer that came out, is what came across from the trailer was and even the press release from the marketing, is like the Amazons were protecting their way of life from invaders. And part of that protection was also from Europeans.
Yeah.
One of the biggest enslavers in West Africa were the Amazon, Dahomey.
Yeah.
That's what they were known for. Their culture, their civilization was built on enslaving other people. Yeah. That's what they did. So if you're from West Africa, you know this historically. It's like, in the same way in which Europeans know what the Germans did in the Second World War, West Africans know Dahomeyans, that's what they did. So when you're projected in the film, they kind of tried to tackle it, but they didn't.
You're right. Yeah, because I even researched it afterwards. And they were saying that it was quite ironic that they were basically highlighted as trying to abolish slavery, but actually they also traded humans. There was a business in it. So they would sell different tribes to get weapons in order to then attack other parts of West Africa. So as much as they were protecting their own, it was at a cost of others' lives as well. So they very much were also culprits in slavery to a certain extent.
Majorly. I wouldn't say they were actually...
But they showed that in the film though.
So in the film...
Yeah, they did.
In the film... So this is the interesting part of it. This is where a lot of people like boycott this film. So in the film, interestingly enough, the Amazonian female warriors were seen to be either totally neutral or against it. The people that tended to be for it was the Kingezo. So people saw that as a sort of another sort of feminist agenda to basically paint the male characters as being evil and the female characters, even though they're complicit and also profited. Yeah. The female warriors profited majorly from it. Yeah. So that's a problematic area. In the film, there's a speech King Gezo gives at the end.
Right.
That's a problematic speech.
Why? Let me see if I can even get that speech up. But what's problematic
It's
about
problematic because King Gezo never had any intention of abolishing slavery. He had absolutely no intention of doing it. The Dahomeyans the Dahomeyans were not Pan-Africanist. They didn't believe, again, this is a misconception people have. Africans in those days did not see themselves as Africans. It was like, I'm Dahomeyan, you're Twi, you're Ashanti. Yeah. You're different groups. You're totally different groups. The Dahomeyans did not see the Yoruba as any different from the Europeans simply because they had the different skin color. They're the other. Right. So this notion of black people selling black people did not exist. is the concept is very abstract. The concept only makes sense when you come to Europe and you see the world in a way in which the Europeans saw the world, which is black versus white.
Yeah.
In Africa, that mindset did not exist. And to be honest with you, still doesn't exist in Africa, except in an abstract sort of way. So I'll give you an example. I always say to people, because I was born in the UK, I went back to Nigeria when I was young. I was about 4 when I went back. I came back when I was 19. And I always say to people, even though I understood racism and all that kind of stuff, the first time I actually understood what it was like to be black was when I came back to live in England. Before then, the concept of being black is abstract. You can't fully understand the idea of what it means to be black as opposed to being Yoruba or African until you come into the West, because that's when the rules change. It's like it's like playing a game of chess when there's no white pieces on the board.
Yeah.
To playing a game of chess when there's white and black pieces. This is very, very different. You can't play that game. So when I came to England, I started to understand the context of what it meant to be black in the world made sense. In Africa, when you live in a country where you're like 99% black, that doesn't, the concept of racism is abstract.
Makes sense. And do you think that's the reason why Europeans for so long enslaved us? Because they saw that there was a lot of tribalism going on, and they were able to divide and conquer by splitting the different tribes.
I think that's a major, because again, when you look into the detail about how the Europeans waged wars in Africa, they would generally use African soldiers.
Yeah.
So most of when they field troops, most of them tend to be African soldiers from different areas. So when, for example, if you look into the ways in which within Africa, the British were able to kind of conquer different subgroups within Africa, within Nigeria, they would usually use the Northerners. So they enlist the Northerners into an army and they'd march into areas and have fights. And eventually once they've conquered all the groups, they then turn their guns against the Northerners. So that's a method they use, and it pretty much kind of worked, because once you don't have that sort of mindset of people are using us against each other, then you're not able to. And if you look at globally, wars are kind of generally won in situations where you ally yourself with other people.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to fight a war by yourself, especially against a foe that's formidable, and win that war. It's very, very difficult. You have to make alliances with different nations, come together and defeat your opponent. So if you look at the Ethiopians, when the war won the first Ethiopian war against Italy, one of the reasons why they were able to do it is that they made an alliance with Russia because of their Orthodox Christianity background. They made alliances and they were able to get weapons from Russia. That's how they were able to defeat Italy.
I feel like you've got some deeper context than, I guess, myself. So I can't argue with what you're saying right now. But I do think maybe I haven't read into the meaning of why it was created as much as you all. But I didn't know why it was created before I watched it. When I watched it, after watching it, I concluded that it was created to retell what was historic, what was history, what was facts, and to empower Black women. That's what I thought. That's what I got from the reason as to why it was created, and also from your point, diversity as well. That of course, that Hollywood want to make more diverse films, but you've given a different perspective, which I didn't really think about.
Again, it doesn't mean that I don't think the film is valid. I think the film is very valid, and I think Black people should support the film. And this is the reason why I think that way. I think Hollywood only cares about money. So if a film is successful, they'll be like, oh, let's make more of it. If it's not successful, that's it. It's like, okay, we told you guys this film we're gonna make it. Because the other day, they kind of hinted at that in a sense. Because I think one of the strengths and weaknesses of the film is when you watch the film, it kind of affects people in different ways. So I went to watch it with my son, my daughter, and my wife. My daughter and my wife saw something very different to what I saw. What they saw in the film, which for them was a massive positive, was a relationship between older Black women and younger Black women. And that kind of nurturing thing, which you don't see in cinema. And they really valued that. And also the depiction of dark, even though I do understand what you mean about this over masculine depiction of women in the film, I totally agree with you. But they kind of saw something different. They saw that you had loads of Black women who were beautiful and they were dark-skinned, depicted on screen in a major Hollywood film. And you don't really get that.
No.
So they saw that aspect of the film and they really liked it for that reason.
Yeah.
Myself and my son saw it from a totally different perspective. And I think part of the greatness, in quotes, of the film is people come to the film and they take different things away. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. And usually with great films, and I'm not saying the film is great, that's why I did great in quote. Usually with films that are powerful, it tends to affect people in different ways.
That's true.
Right, yeah.
But one thing I will say about the film is, as Black people, we should be allowed to make mistakes. This is the first historical film that places us in a powerful position. Whereas if you look at things like, let's say, Roots, for example, we are played as the underdog. It's like, the Black people have been enslaved. Whereas with this film, we kind of played slightly differently. Even though it's not, and even though it's not perfect, it has a lot of problems. We can fix that. But we can only fix that if we make more films, because other groups are allowed to make mistakes. Like, you get loads of Hollywood films, historical, about the Roman Empire. And I call this film our own version of 300. I don't know if you guys remember 300.
Yeah, that was a great film.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because 300 has similar problems. Like the Spartans are depicted as this heroic people who defended freedom and democracy. That's not the real Spartans. The Spartans lived in a society where it was basically run by slaves, and they murdered slaves with impunity in the society. It was not a free society. It was a very militaristic society.
Yeah.
But then with film and with anything that's been created, I am of the opinion that I think it's okay to remix things. You don't have to do things exactly how it went in history. You can say it's based upon or inspired by a true story, but I also think it's very interesting when you can add your own little spin in it.
A fictional.
Because it's about, that's what creativity is about. It's about making things, adding your own spin on things, and I think that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I only think it's not okay when there's a negative impact. In this case of The Woman King, I don't think there was.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to be fair, from the get-go, they did say that it's inspired. It's not going to be like a factual overview of what actually happens.
Yeah.
And they also admitted that all the main characters are fictional too. And similar to you, I left that film feeling empowered as well. I understand your points around the fact that women are categorized as angry and strong and so forth, but strength can be seen in positive ways as well. And one thing that I got from it was strength and sacrifice. Strength in terms of obviously women having to commit to putting themselves in dangerous situations for a cause that in the film definitely seemed to align with abolishing slavery. Whether that's right or wrong, obviously that's for a different discussion. But in addition to that, the sacrifice, like they weren't allowed to get married. They weren't allowed to have kids. They literally had to dedicate their whole life to this. And I just feel like it just shows how powerful we are as a race. And to your earlier point, I'm fed up with seeing us as victims.
Yeah,
like I want us to be embraced based on our strengths, to be fair. Like, because it's definitely something that we are trying to, I guess, continue to encourage these days with all these different businesses we're doing and us building this platform. And it very much aligns to what we're trying to do here. Like, we are now part of the race, basically. Like, we're taking back control. And I feel like films like that definitely align with that way of thinking.
Yeah.
Alicia, I'll ask you a question. Just kind of going back to what you said earlier about creativity when you're retelling historical stories. If, for example, someone made a film and depicted Hitler as someone who was kind of like a nice guy, wasn't really as bad as we think he is, how do you think people would feel about it? He didn't like Jewish people, but he didn't really kill 6 million Jews. He was kind of all right, but he was How do you think that will be taken by people?
I think it won't be taken well. However, I'm of the opinion that, first of all, obviously Hitler was a horrible person from what we know in history, right? But I'd be interested to see what the positive side people might have saw in him, because there were people that were on his side that fought with him. And I think that it's very, very important in life to see things from different perspectives and see that. So I'm okay. I'll personally be okay with a film being, I'll see it. I'll be like, okay, what's the perspective that this is positive or how it's positive?
But this film wasn't a point of view, and I think that's the difference. This film wasn't a point of view. They put words in people's mouths that they most probably did not say because of where they were coming from and what they did. So King Gazer, for example, he gave a speech at the end which was a total disaster, because that's like again, making a film, and at the end of the film, Hitler says, "I love Jewish people." It's kind of like that. He's making a
But they
statement.
change the narrative though. It's a film. They can do that. I think that's
No,
okay.
but again, if it's based on historical fact, don't forget.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Most people in America who are black were basically descended of people who were enslaved, most probably by the Dahomeans. To them that's problematic because they're watching the film thinking,
To be
those
fair,
are the guys who enslaved us. They're the heroes.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on? That's what they're thinking. So
Right, okay.
from an emotional
Okay.
point of view, let's not
So
forget.
that's quite sensitive.
and the king was the only real character. In the,
So
in the-
he
he actually
He
done
was
exist,
real.
yeah.
He was real.
Right. So I understand what you're saying.
He was real, and again, their economy was addicted to slavery. They're enslaved. So I give you a good example. The scene at the beginning. Remember, I don't even remember the scene at the beginning where
Yeah,
they
where
go to rescue.
in the bushes, and they rose up.
So the tribe that they were attacking
Yeah.
to save their people from, I can't remember how they kind of framed it. They were like an innocent tribe. So where they came into conflict with the Oyo Empire was basically that tribe that they attacked at the beginning was under the protection of Oyo Empire.
Yeah.
They were raiding that tribe to get slaves to sell to the Europeans. That's in the real world.
That's what happened.
That's what happened.
Right.
So the conflict they had with Oyo, so basically they were like a tribute state to Oyo. So Oyo conquered them, and every year they had to give loads of stuff to Oyo Empire. Part of it was slaves.
Right.
So that was the arrangement they had. They had that for close to 100 years, that relationship. And every now and again they'll try and break away, and they'll get their ass. They get into a war and they'll get humbled, and they kind of things went back to normal. So on this particular occasion, they were raiding another group of people that were under Oyo's protection. And that's how they came into conflict with them at that particular time, which eventually they won that because Oyo had other wars that the empire was collapsing effectively. So they couldn't fight wars on so many different fronts. So again, they picked a story to start off with that wasn't really true, and it was depicted. Something that would be interesting to watch, there's a series on, I think there's a documentary in Channel 4, and it was made shortly after Black Panther, and it had Lupita, what's her name?
Yeah.
Lupita.
Yeah.
She's actually in the documentary, and it's really fascinating. Watch the documentary. It's incredibly powerful.
What's it called?
I think if you Google Lupita...
Channel 4, you'll find it.
Channel 4...
Have you seen it?
No, but it'd be easy to find if you.
Channel 4. So she goes to Dahomey, and she investigates the whole thing about the Amazons. The documentary goes, she meets the king, she sees the throne, they reenact some of the dances and the war songs and all that kind of stuff. They talk through some of the parts of the training, and she in fact meets a woman who's like really super old, and this woman is the last, she trained with the Amazons, but she never actually went to war. So when they start singing, the woman, when they meet her, she's like super old. I think she's blind or somehow kind of senile or something. But once they start singing the songs to her, this woman comes alive and she starts singing. But the most poignant point in this documentary is when the handler, the woman who's the fixer, who's working with Lupita, says, "Oh, I want you to meet my mom." And she takes Lupita to meet her mom. And her mom is Dahomeyan in quote, but she's a Yoruba origin. And I think her mom was basically enslaved by the Dahomeyans. They got their village raided and got captured. And the mom is clearly traumatized by that experience. So it was quite interesting seeing the point of view from someone else who'd been enslaved by the Dahomeyans and brought into the society and kind of lived amongst and identified pretty much as a Dahomeyan, even though her ancestral lineage is Yoruba. So it's a really powerful documentary, and some people suspect that when Lupita did this documentary, because before then she was supposed to be in this film, in
Yeah, she
Woman
turned
King.
it down. Yeah,
Oh,
she said,
really?
"I'm
A lot of
leaving."
people
I thought she would have been in this film, actually.
A lot of people suspect that she then turned down the film because of this experience.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
It's called
when
Woman
she's-
Warrior as well.
So it's almost like the
Yeah.
Dahomey in a sense is like, to some people, they're like as bad as Hitler. So it's like, how can you do this film trying to depict
Oh,
Hitler
so
as
they
a
were.
hero when they
Yeah.
did this and that?
Oh,
But the point I was
right.
going to say, Akin, earlier on you said that it was good to see a film based on African, Black history that wasn't linked to slavery and this kind of stuff. But the film was still linked to slavery. So I just thought, why would they not show like every single movie to do with Black history is always linked to slavery and the Europeans. But
I agree.
And slavery was only, 450 years ago, let's say?
It
So it's like,
finished
what
it,
happened
yes.
1,000 years ago? What happened even just 700 years ago? 2,000. So I'm just saying, all these films,
Good point.
they always link back. There's always slavery in it.
I totally agree. I totally agree with you. But my thinking was, this is a first step. So maybe if this works, they might do a Shaka Zulu, or they might do a Mansa Musa, if that makes sense. Because again, the way Hollywood thinks is they might not be able to go from a roots straight into a Mansa Musa without going through something that kind of in some ways resonates in some shape or form. This is my thinking. My thinking is nowhere near perfect. It's very, very flawed. But if this film can be successful, then there might be a conversation about doing a film that has absolutely nothing. Because I do agree, that film actually could have been made without European involvement at all. It could have been, a story could have been told without the preaching. So there's a film that came out not too long ago called A Northman. And it was really, really, Northman. It was really, really successful. And it's about this character who's like a Viking. And it was like incredibly brutal. For me, that film really works for two reasons. Number one, it didn't preach. It just showed this guy who basically was a Viking. They went raided. He got captured from his village, got sold and sold and sold. He went into war. He killed loads of innocent people. There was no moralizing. It just told a story about a person's experience.
Right.
If they treated the film that way, I think and all this other noise that was happening would have been dead. But that's not what this film did. This film was basically preaching to people that these people fought to defend goodness in some shape or form, or Africans against the invaders, rah, rah, rah. There was no such thing as, the Dahomeans did not view the world that way. It should have just been sold as, these people lived, when you look at it in terms of the span of history, there are no heroes in that sort of way in history. Like every hero, every conqueror, every warrior race, every empire effectively subjugated other people through strength. That's just the nature of history.
And also the other element in the film, what I did find quite funny at the scene at the end. So obviously there was the guy, Malik, who was obviously the mixed race guy that was
Oh yeah.
the guy at the end with the
love interest.
hair, who fell in love with the girl.
Yeah.
Now at the end, because he was in love with the girl, they showed it like he was a hero because he betrayed his own people. The guy he was raised with, I don't know if it was a half brother or whatever, the white guy.
Yeah,
he betrayed his own people at the end to free the slaves, and they depicted that like it was a really heroic thing to do. Because they're playing on the emotions of the viewer because they've built up the Dahomey.
It's love drink, love, yeah.
Yeah.
But really, when you deep the ting, as the young people say, he actually betrayed, because they took him in. So at one point, I know the brother said that, or I call it the brother, but the white guy said to him, like, you're lucky that you're not there with them, because they treated black people.
I heard them say that.
And the point is, they took him in, they gave him money, he was dressed like they treated him as one of their own. And then for him to go and betray them and got his own guy killed, I'm like, he just betrayed his people.
See, I didn't see it like that. I saw it as a good
interesting.
thing. I saw it as, he, like back then, I can't imagine what it was like to be on the cusp of almost being a slave. I'm not gonna lie, if they dressed me up and put me in all the clothes and said, you're with us, I'll be there. Because it's my life. It's every man for themselves initially. But if opportunity presents that I can help, I will. And I feel like that scenario was that, like, he was probably really scared
put into
to do
that
it
situation
until that point. That's how I saw it. I don't know if anyone saw it differently as well.
I saw it the same as you. Also, wasn't whoever he was, brother, friend, he was also trying to take slaves and put them in a boat and force them to go in the sea with him. Maybe if it was just them two on the boat, he might have just wanted to just escape with him. He probably didn't like the fact that he was still trying to get the slaves.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying what I'm saying is like, I'm just saying if it was the other way around now, if it was a Dahomey woman who didn't like how she was they were treating her people, and she's betraying the Dahomeans to save these Europeans because she's fallen in love with this guy and she wants to help this guy. She doesn't like how they. Do you understand? I'm just saying, like, in terms of if you just take emotions out of it, just objectively looking at
the actions, what people are doing.
He betrayed his people. And the whole thing, the Dahomeans, is all about you don't betray your people. So it's kind of like, it's celebrated for him because the view has been led, the Dahomeans, they're the good ones, we've got to support them. Oh, slavery is so bad, which it was. But I'm just saying that if you just flip the narrative to the European guy's point of view, we've taken you in, you're not a slave, we love you and look after you as our own. We're giving you freedom and everything like that. But now, because and this is something that feeds us, we're profiting. We're profiting off this slavery thing. That was how they lived their life and made their money. That's how they paid their bills. That's how they looked after their kids. I'm not saying it was right, but I'm just saying if you take emotions out of it,
what he did,
he threw them under the bus. Like in the highest spot, he got the man killed.
It's true, but then I guess another question to ask is who did he actually resonate with? Because his mother was Dahomey,
and his dad was white.
Yeah,
so
but
it's interesting.
But I feel like he was more connected to his mum.
Yeah,
he was clearly more identified more with the Dahomeans, even though he was Brazilian. That's just the way they kind of wrote the character, and maybe he's seen so much injustice.
That's what I think it was.
And
seen so much injustice.
Right and wrong. Forget about loyalty. If you're loyal to people that are doing wrong, it's
I think it was beyond the love.
No, I know. I hear that. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in terms of the movie. I'm saying if it was the other way around, where the Dahomeans had done something which they felt was, okay, that's wrong what you're doing. Like, for example, there was the scene where the girl, that's a good scene. So remember the early scenes where the girl actually broke the rules to go back and save Viola Davis's character. Yeah. Now, that was looked down upon. She was saying, don't do that. That was out of order. You don't know how to follow orders. Do you know what I mean? That was wrong. But because the motive she had there was, I want to save you, it wasn't looked down upon. It was just like, she just tried to. She tried
to do the right thing.
So the viewer wasn't like, "Oh, that's out of order." You got to.
Because you kind of feel like,
But when the guy now did his side, it was looked upon as, that was a good thing that he did. He broke the rules there because he's trying to help. Do you understand what I mean?
I suppose the audience identifies you. Already, the film sets up who we should identify with. So we've got the heroes. And
exactly,
you bend the characters like it's like you're watching an American cop film where they're like, they take someone and they torture them, they beat them up to get a confession. It's the wrong thing to do, but because you identify with the cop and what they're trying to do, you're like, it's fine. Whereas if they're like a nasty racist cop, so it's kind of similar in a way. And I suppose that's the skill of the filmmakers. They lure you, they make you identify with certain people, even though what they're doing could be considered as morally wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So out of interest, I feel like black people and non-black people have received this film differently. How do you feel like non-black people, obviously none of us are non-black, but just perception, how do you think they've received it? Do you think they're thinking too deep into it? They think, this is a great film, entertaining, like what do you think their perspective is?
It's hard to say as we're not.
Yeah, it's hard. But based on conversations, have you had conversations with any non-black individuals about the film?
No,
not really.
Yeah.
What I would say is it depends on where they come from. So I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube. You do have a lot of commentary channels, people that comment about films and all that kind of stuff. I think what kind of influences the way a lot of non-white, non-black people view the film is where they have the political leaning. So if they're liberal, they tend to view it more positively. If they're more conservative, especially if they're kind of slightly more deeper into the left side of things, politics, they tend to be a lot more critical of the film for its politics. So the classic thing would be, why are they depicting black people who sold other black people as heroes? Yeah, that's a classic thing. So when you go on YouTube, you see a lot of channels, channels. Yeah. Where white people, and in fact, what it's done is in some ways it's kind of legitimized the point of view from a lot of white people who are against reparations.
Yeah.
It's given them a lot of confidence to say, you see, that's rubbish. If you're going to pay reparations, who are you going to pay reparations to?
Very true point.
So it has legitimized a lot of their voices, given them more of a platform to then critique a lot of people who voice and who basically call for reparations.
Yeah. So that leads on to, like, you raised a really good question there, because obviously Alicia and Nads were saying that they felt empowered after they watched it. But it was interesting because literally you saw the film was about black people selling black people into slavery. So how could you feel empowered as a black person watching that? Especially because there's so many other films where you see the white people selling black people into slavery and they were slaves. But it's like this film, it's the same thing. It's just that the slave owners were black in this film. It showed that angle, which was quite interesting. So how comes? I hope I'm not skipping the question.
No.
How did you leave? Why did you feel empowered?
Good question. Do you want to go first, Naz?
I don't mind going first.
Go on.
I think I got empowered from a female stance. Just seeing the fact that women weren't just sold for sex, weren't just victimized. There was actually a strong army of basically like female military folk who were able to achieve what they needed to achieve, if that makes sense. So for me, it was, okay, I know I was agreeing with you before in terms of women shouldn't be seen as the angry, strong black women. I don't think that was, personally, I didn't think that from that film. I just saw women were able to basically overcome their fears, commit to a cause and fight for something that's greater. Obviously, doing my research after the film, I realized that clearly the Dahomey tribe obviously contributed towards slavery too. But having going into that film with an ignorant mindset and seeing how women were basically striving to abolish slavery and the fact that they took 1/3 of the army to do that, I left that film feeling strength, if that makes sense, feeling that, okay, no, there were actually strong female advocates that were also putting themselves forward to fight for a greater cause. Now, obviously, at a later date,
I was
Well, the thing
dying.
so like, I think putting the slavery thing aside for 1 second, just the concept of them being strong women together and training. So I was like, my angle was, I love this training aspect. I love this fact that they're helping these women to really become strong. They're giving them tough love. Like, I like this process. I like the older woman nurturing young woman thing, because I'm about passing on information and passing on strength and everything. And I like that they work together, because oftentimes sometimes even in corporate places, we seem to compete against each other a lot. Like so I think seeing them come together and then be powerful together and fight whatever cause it was, slavery, saving someone, whatever it was, seeing them do that was empowering for me to see.
100%.
And come together and do it.
It's the community aspect.
Yeah, it was the community.
Yeah, we are seen as divisive. We are seen as an individualistic culture that's always out for themselves.
Yeah.
So seeing the elder generation actually nurture the younger women and actually be part of one and fight for the same cause, for me, it just showed unity and strength.
Yeah.
It's interesting you guys both pick up on the point that you're seeing the older generation nurture the younger generation, because I thought that is very prevalent and strong in the black community, both African and Caribbean. I think we always see the grandmother figure, the granddad, the parent, like very much so.
But that's really shown in films.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key thing.
Is,
and that's what my wife and my daughter said, is like, you very rarely see that depicted in films to the same degree.
Really?
I can't think.
I've seen it in almost every film. There's always that if it's not grandparent, it's like the mother or father. In like every film, you go to Boys in the Hood, it's the single father with the son.
But you
go to Soul Food. You go, is it Soul Food? I think, and there's the grandmother figure. You go to Sister Act 2, and there's the older women, Whoopi Goldberg, the sister. Like, I think that's very common, personally.
But I think it's the context. I think seeing it in a different context and seeing it. This is the thing about creativity. I like seeing a message in different ways. Yeah. And I feel like I appreciated seeing it in that way as well. Yeah. As opposed to a family at the dinner table. And I think, to be honest, even though there's the narrative of strong black women, sometimes I thought this film was a nice reminder. Like, we're strong. We're resilient.
And the examples that you shared, they're westernized. Like everyone.
We are in the Western world.
I know, but that's not what they were depicting in this film. They were depicting Africa. Yeah. And how and how the culture was there. So yeah, I get your point. Definitely, women nurturing women in younger generations. But I just think it's nice to just see Africa beyond slavery. Obviously, the film was very much about slavery. But in addition to that, just how people interacted with each other and the community aspect.
All right, can I share my opinion?
Of course.
Sorry.
We are here to be open.
Yeah. No, because I hear what you're saying, and I hear that. Obviously, you used to saying you felt empowered, and it was good to see strong black women, and I think that was, on the surface level, what they wanted people to think. I can understand why you think that. Yeah. But I like to go deeper into things, and what I saw hurt black women. That's how I would describe the Dahomey women, the women. I saw women that were hurt. All of them came together on a common thing of hurt. They were betrayed by men. One of them, her father her father actually took her there to dash her into the thing. He said, you know what, I don't even want you. She was rejected by her father. Before that, her father tried to send her to an old abusive man to marry. The man slapped her up and was, disrespectful to her. So again, another betrayal by a man.
True.
The other one, she was in there, she was raped by loads of men.
Yeah.
Men. So it was like they bonded together on a hatred of men. Let's be honest, they were hurt.
That's true.
They'd all been hurt and let down by men. And then they bonded together and said, okay, because of how men have treated us, we will no longer marry a man. Oh, so again, anti-men. And we will not have children because, again, you can't have children without a man as a woman. So again, anti-men. So they bonded together out of hurt. I saw hurt women together that thought, you know what? The real world out there is trash. I've been hurt by men. I've been let down. So I'm going to come here and vow to never marry a man, never have kids with a man, and sit here with women and fight. Fighting, again, is another expression of anger because you're hurt. So I saw a group of hurt black women bonded together over hurt, going into battles and warfare for hurt, and giving up and not allowing themselves to love and be tender ever again, because when they were tender and soft, they were let down by men. That's the underlying message that I saw there. I saw hurt women. I didn't see strong women.
So sorry, can I just so I understand your point. However, I am again of the opinion that if people are hurt and they come together to be stronger, that's okay. Because it's better than you continue being in that hurt and continue doing the things that have caused you hurt, caused you pain. So it wouldn't make sense for me to see a film where women have been abused and rejected by men to then continue to seek men. For me, it made sense for them to come together to empower each other, to be stronger together. That is how I saw it. And I understand. But I think in day-to-day life, people bond over similar pain points. It's life.
But I think what you're kind of trying to say in a roundabout, and a lot of people have actually articulated the same thing, and you've got this sort of modern day kind of feminist agenda in which in some ways men are painted to be the oppressors and denigrated, and there's a feeling that for women to be elevated, men have to be reduced.
This is it.
Right,
and that's at the heart of the film.
Right.
Without a doubt.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
Film, yeah.
It is a feminist film, and I think black people where we are, we can't afford that luxury to denigrate men or to elevate our women at the expense of men. We cannot afford. We're not really in that. We talk about failure marriages, relationships. We really kind of suffer from it. So we don't have that luxury to play those kind of gender politics games. So we kind of need to pull ourselves together rather than create this very divisive game. And a lot of, particularly in America, a lot of black men find the film really problematic for the reasons that you've very, very clearly stated. A lot of them find it to be a problem. In fact, the sort of boycott Woman King movement on Twitter is very much black
men.
men.
But the thing is, the reason I understand what you're saying, but I disagree because I feel like the scenarios that were presented they're stories that women can resonate with. Domestic violence, rape, all these things. So you're bringing up things that have caused us pain. And actually this is a way to deal with it. Like it's life. Like unfortunately, a vast majority of black women have experienced these things by black men. And this is how we're choosing to communicate it and showcase it. And so I understand it's not great for the world to see, but it's life. And it's not just black women that do it against black men. We see white drunk abusive men sometimes in films. We see Asian, we see all types. This is just also a part of our reality that unfortunately exists.
I've actually got a question for you.
Yeah.
So there's two things that I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you have an issue with. I guess the first part is the historical facts that have been incorrectly depicted in the film. And then the second component is the fact that men have to be somewhat degraded to elevate females. Now, of course, we can address the first point around, okay, actually document the facts. But in an ideal world, how would you have wanted the film to have been?
I was actually going to say that.
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
So in terms of the sort of painting the women as kind of entirely hero, that's not entirely true because King Gaze or some of his wives were played to be kind of a little bit funny. What I would have done if I was actually the writer of the film is I would have, number one, removed the moralizing. Moralizing from King Gazo, his speech at the end I found really, really problematic. I would have depicted the film in a very matter of fact. This is the kind of stuff that was normal to people at that point in time. So the speech he gave at the end about protecting their freedoms against the Europeans, stopping slavery. That's a nonsense. That never happened. What I would have done is I would have played the Viola Davis character as a character who had misgivings about the role of slavery, but was kind of forced in some ways to accept it. I would have also painted some of the other characters around her as some of them supporting slavery and some of them not. More nuance, rather than all of them being like, oh, we're against slavery. All the female characters were against slavery. All the men were kind of like very shady. No, I would have made it a lot more nuanced because the Amazons, they profited from it. Men and their status in society. They had the scene at the beginning where they were when they were coming in after they'd done the raid. They were coming in and people couldn't look at. People had to look at the floor. That's real. People could not look them in the eye because they were elevated. So that was that's actually real. So people saw them in the way in which the general population saw the Amazons. They were seen as the highest. People aspired to that. So the conditions in which the women came into becoming Amazons, I would have varied it. So it wasn't just predicated on them being subjugated, raped, beaten, sold into that kind of situation. I would have nuanced it a little bit. So basically, I would have painted a society where pretty much the Amazons and the elite profited from slavery and actually wanted to facilitate and continue slavery. And you might have had a few people who kind of had the long-term vision. That's how I would have played it. And I think it would have made a lot of difference. I would have been honest, basically. When you as a filmmaker, as a person who tells stories, you have to be honest. There's got to be an authenticity to the way in which you tell a story. If you're not, especially in this day and age where people can just Google stuff and find out stuff, people will call you out. And if you haven't got a good defense or a good reason why you've done something, then it kind of delegitimizes what you're doing. And I think that's where they kind of failed.
Yeah.
They did not do due diligence to the storytelling. That's how I would have done it.
Okay.
My fellow Yorubas in the film. So the way the villain was portrayed is like a classical villain trope.
Yeah.
He was very brash. And it's like, no, there's nuances. There's ways in which you kind of depict villainy without being cartoonish about it. And I would have played it very, very different. Like the rape, the sort of, without giving too much of a spoiler away, the rape scene that kind of led to another narrative point, I felt is overkill. Me personally, I felt is overkill.
Why?
There's a guy on YouTube who did a video.
Yeah.
And all the things he predicted before he watched the film was what they wrote in the film. So it's just totally predictable. It's like, oh yeah, we know that Viola Davis' character was traumatized and she would have been traumatized by a rape, which would have led to something else, which became a plot thing later on in the film. It's like totally predictable.
It's bad that it's predictable, no?
Very bad that it was predictable.
So it's surely...
That's predictable.
No, but I'm saying it's bad in the sense that this happened quite often enough.
Yeah.
That is going to
but what I'm saying is it becomes a main plot device within the film. So it's not just the reason why she is the way she is. Again, I don't want to give away any plot sort of like, but it becomes the reason at the end. Just like if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The whole rape thing then kind of comes full circle at the end. And for me, I was like...
And also it's like, again, why does rape have to be the catalyst for these women to find power in that sense? Because again, I know it's like people are anti-patriarchy and stuff, but really and truly it plays into the patriarchy. Because again, it's men that are the base factor determining if a woman's powerful or not. Why could she not just wake up one day and like the girl did something good when she created the gun, remember an explosive?
Yes.
That is an example, in my opinion, of empowering women. Because it's an example of she used her intelligence, she used her skills,
of her own agency.
and she created something of her own agency. It wasn't triggered by what a man did to her.
I totally agree.
It just came off her own.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from.
I totally agree.
All those women in that camp, because it's like a man did this to me. So it's like, oh yeah, we're the crew of, oh, a man did this and a man did that. Oh, what did a man? Oh yeah, a man slapped me up. Oh yeah, you come in. Oh what? Oh, a man raped me. Oh yeah, you come in. Oh, a man betrayed you. Yeah, you come in. It's like, oh no one's like, oh, I'm intelligent.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm strong. Oh, I'm naturally athletic.
Yeah. The thing is, I understand what you're saying, and I think I'm trying to compare it to real life and how we can aspire to real life. I think it's great when someone has created something or does something because they're naturally just inspired to do it. I think that's amazing. More times than none, based on my experience and conversations with people, there was a trigger to give them that inspiration, to allow them to be at the point that they're at today, which is, and sometimes that trigger was more than non-negative. My trigger was racism in the workplace to do what I'm doing today. Unfortunately, it's a negative experience, but I've managed to turn it into a positive, basically. So I do understand your point. It'll be nice to see them just naturally
but it's a mixture. It's like a combination of different things. And I think one of the problems, like all the key women there, the reason why they...
it's
the reason why...
Actually, fair point. It should have been a mixture.
Everyone else, like, it's like almost like an anti-men camp.
Effectively, It kind of
they
felt...
could have, like you said, they could have had so many different elements. Somebody could have just been an orphan, like the Jungle Book kid. So, something like that, but it's like... all of them were linked to a man doing a misjustice to them, a mistreatment to them.
But then, question to you: wasn't that basically a normal occurrence? Men doing things to women, like it's not like
I don't think that's necessarily the only reason why women became Amazons. I don't think it's necessarily the only reason why.
Yeah,
right.
I may be wrong, but I don't think that's necessarily the case.
Yeah.
And I think also when you're telling a story within a modern day context, I think you just got to add a little bit of nuance to a certain kind of situation.
Yeah.
And just kind of play things a little bit different.
That's
so
true.
You're not, so it's to me, it kind of felt, again, when you look at the two producers and what they wanted to do, everything that you've said falls in line with their agenda. It really does. You're literally watching the film, you're like, okay, I can see where that's kind of come from.
Yeah.
And my slight disappointment is, when you have black people in the room, why didn't someone say something about this?
Well, there was a black person
that's what I mean.
as well.
That's what I mean. Why didn't someone say, you know what, this feels a little bit heavy-handed. It feels a little bit heavy for our community at this point in time. We need to be kind of coming together. So let's kind of, we know stuff like that happen, but we don't make all of them become this victim of this trauma from black men. Let's kind of play this thing out a little bit. Let's soften it a little bit. Yes, it's part of the narrative, but that's not the only agency that the women have.
Yeah. I think it's lack of education as well, to be fair. Like, speaking from ourselves, for instance, Alicia, we went in there with, to be fair, an ignorant mindset. Because
I know nothing,
Yeah, we didn't know anything. And then off the back of watching that film, we then did our research. And now we were like, oh, actually, it's not as prettily depicted as it's showcased in that film. So I feel like what you said about Lupita, having had that engagement and done your research prior to being part of the film. I'm not saying that Viola Davis didn't. Potentially, they may have changed their mindset towards acting these roles and so forth.
I'll be surprised if she did it. I mean, again, it's not hard to find this information. All you do is Google it, and the information is there, and a lot of it. Not even a little bit, a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of information.
The thing about
fair enough, there is.
The thing about Dahomey is, because of where they were on the coast, they had a lot of interaction with Europeans, a lot. And a lot of stuff was written down. And even images of the way they look, things were drawn. It was very, very clear what they did, what was done before them, what was done after them, King Gazo, what he did. They were quite, and then, again, they were a product of the time. In many ways.
That long ago as well, so there's so much information there. We're talking less than 200 years, really.
There's a lot of information
it wasn't
about
1,000,
them.
It was just this documentation.
There's a lot of information about that group of people, and again, within the context of history, they are what they are. They had, in some ways, they had to do what they did in some ways to survive, and they became addicted to it. And effectively, as a group of people, they became addicted to slavery, that even when they were being forced to give it up, they fought tooth and nail to retain that way of life.
You got to think, obviously they would. That's the other thing. That day of time, that was how you made your money.
That's how you made your money.
No one wants to go to slavery like, no, because how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to buy my nice
or protect
my nice
themselves
car?
as well.
How am I going to buy my nice
clothes?
clothes?
It was normal.
You know what I mean? So of course, I would imagine there would be a massive pushback. Not only from the white people, but like I said, the Dahomey and the other black people
that
profited.
They profited from it. So, and again, I think they dropped the ball on that one.
So it's unrealistic to have them saying, "Oh yeah, let's just get rid of it."
Oh yeah, we're gonna
because when you're profiting of it, of course not.
But another interesting part of the story is King Gazo deposed his brother to get on the throne. So he's kind of seen as illegitimate in a sense. His brother was the one that was playing around with the idea of using trading palm oil instead of slaves.
Oh.
So
that's in real life?
In real life.
Okay, so that was true.
No, but not
No,
him.
because
His brother.
they made it out that the woman came up with that, but it was actually
Yeah, there's
so
brothers.
another way of putting down men again for the sake
So
of the
he
story.
was like, so his brother was the one that was actually playing around the idea of actually, you know what, we probably need to give this thing up. And he deposed his brother and then doubled down on the whole slavery thing.
Right, I see,
So again, it's like, and again, I know with films you kind of change things to kind of do the drama. But you got that responsibility to actually do due diligence as much as you possibly can and not lie about stuff.
Yeah.
You can be clever on the way you might omit stuff, but you don't lie and mislead people. Because what was happening is when the build up to the film being released, because on YouTube you can watch reaction videos.
Yeah.
And there's loads of reaction videos when the trailer first came out. And you see black people watching the film, and black people in tears because finally we got a film about us fighting Europeans. And I'm watching the thing, scratching my head, thinking, "Oh, how are they gonna do this?" Because that's like me telling you won £1 million, and then actually you find out you actually owe me money. That's what it's like because it's a betrayal. It's a betrayal.
I didn't see it as a betrayal. Was a strong word.
No, because
Akin.
again,
that is a strong
I tell you,
word.
it's a betrayal because I'm watching people filming themselves watching the trailer, and they're like, finally we have a film talking about us fighting the Europeans. That's not what the film is about.
Well,
But the trailer, that's the trailer. But that's why I mean it's a betrayal, because people think, this is us, it's a resistance, and we got white, I've got our sisters fighting, and the film comes out, it's like, oh no, that's not what the film is about.
I think the performances were powerful, so I can understand why people, because the acting is incredible.
Yeah.
I will say that The Woman King, the performances are brilliant by every so well acted, excellent performances. So I understand how I can move people emotionally because those actors were phenomenal.
Yeah, they were.
Like Oscar-worthy performances, in my opinion. Excellent.
I agree.
Excellent acting.
Yeah, they were.
So I have no issue with that. The acting was good. The film was entertaining. It was a good film. So anyone watching, watch the film. You'll enjoy it. You'll definitely enjoy it. But I was just saying, like, the conversations about just a different perspective. So it's nice to kind of dissect and delve deeper into why did you think this way, or why did you feel this way after you watched it. So the bits that were touching for me was obviously the motherly kind of love that I still felt, even though Viola's character was tough as hell.
But I still,
I still felt the love through that. She loves that girl. She loves her daughter, and then also as well the innocence from the young girl.
Yes.
Even though she was like trying to be this warrior badass, I'm like, she's so cute. Like, bless her. But I think that's all good as well. But I think just the messaging of like the feminine aspects, which is, like I said, the tears, the tenderness, the softness, were very much frowned upon in this movie. Like I said, that scene about the crying, it's like, why do tears, what do you mean tears mean nothing? Like, crying is a sign of strength. You need to be strong to cry. Because as you know, some people, they can't just freely express how they feel. But they talk about crying like it's looked down upon. And then, Akin, you said something earlier as well about they were showing, or again, on a superficial feminist level, a woman can do what a man can do. Now, this is not even true. This is biologically not true. But also that plays into the narrative of patriarchy, because it's like, why does a woman's power need to be determined on she can do what a man can?
It's a male standard. It's like, that's the standard.
Exactly.
I agree.
Well, no, I can't do what a man can. Men are biologically stronger than women. This is
We're
fact.
different.
Yeah.
There's
We're very
nothing wrong with
different.
that. That doesn't mean that a man is better than a woman if he's stronger.
No, we're just different.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, and
But society places men
that's
as
what
more
I was
valuable
thinking.
than, as much as you're saying,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean it, but society places men as higher than women. So
but in what sense?
in terms of their
men
masculinity,
rule. Like,
men rule the world.
Yeah, unfortunately they do. Like, men are in most powerful positions. They run things more. So I think having a film where we're seen to be doing, it's like, we can do what you can do, so we're equal. That's how I kind of saw it. I thought, these women, they can do what women can do, so they're just as equal. Because there's so many films out there that make women look bad. And it's a perspective. It's unfortunately it's bad, but
What film do you have an example of a film you mean?
that made women look really weak and bad. What about, I'm trying to think on top of my head, Diary of a Mad Black Woman. That's a random one.
I haven't seen that film. I've chosen to see
I
it.
don't think I've seen that, but I think the name kind of
the
name kind of gives it away.
Like, that just came to my head as well.
No, I agree with you. I do feel like women have their own strengths, but I don't see how that's helping us in our society. We're still underpaid.
Yeah.
Men are still most likely to be CEOs than women. Men are most likely to have their own business and get more financial backing than women.
Well,
so how do our strengths
well,
how do our strengths elevate us to a level where we're also celebrating?
Well, what I would say, again, another controversial take is that men and women have different strengths.
Yeah.
So in more cases, men are better suited to be a CEO. It doesn't mean that women are less than. So again, with the notion that men tend to be
men are more suited to be
not
CEO.
not all the time. Sometimes depends on the industry, depends on the company. So I'll be honest with you. If I had a bricklayer job, I'm gonna give that to a man over a woman.
Yeah.
Because I think a man's more better at that because he's physically stronger. And again, if you go into the wiring of how the human brain works, men's minds tend to be more logical and rational than a woman's mind. This is
I
not.
disagree.
But this is not a bad.
But it is in some ways a scientific fact. It's a fact.
It's
It
not.
doesn't mean that there aren't women who kind of think in that logical way.
Yeah.
It's just when you look at the average in terms of the population, women tend to think.
Generalize. I think to say I would give a woman or a man a job over this because women are, that's generalizing. I think you have to. This is a requirement. Can you do it? Whatever gender you are, can you do the job? Can you?
I don't. It's like if it's down to say it's two people. So you've got a man and a woman. They're the last two people you're interviewing for this. Could be a bricklayer position. It could be something else. But let's just say the bricklayer position. It's down to a man and a woman. They've both got equal skills, equal credentials.
I personally would hire the woman.
So to be honest, no,
Yeah,
I would hire the man.
Yeah,
I would hire the man, but you're sharing an example which aligns to men being biologically stronger than women. What about in the corporate world, where you see more men being CEOs of companies which require you just to do admin work?
I'll go there because we're doing So basically, women tend to be more emotional. The way that we're wired, we're nurturing. I think somebody showed a diagram or something about the wiring in the brain. If you looked at a woman's wiring, it's kind of all over the place. Erratic, different. That's why when women speak, we tend to talk a lot. Men will just go straight to the point. That's my phone. And be like, oh yeah, it's got a purple case and it's round and I got it from this place. That's why women have a reputation like men are like, okay, she just Men tend to I got the phone. Like, yeah, cool. So that's just how we're naturally wired. There's nothing wrong with that. So that's why men tend to make better leaders than women because I'm being honest. Because men are very, very much more equipped at making snap decisions without their emotions in it and being very logical and sharp and to the point. That's why men tend, not in all the cases, not generalizing, but tend. So there's a tendency for men to be better leaders. So again, there's nothing wrong with that because there's this notion of being the head is everything when being the neck is just as equally as powerful. A head can't stand without a neck.
So where do you feel women can shine?
Women can shine anywhere and everywhere.
But more so than men. Because in this example, we're saying...
I think we're equal. I don't think men are better than women. I don't think women are better than men. And I think that's the whole point. I think within probably the last 150 years, there's been this narrative of men versus women, and it's rubbish.
No, but to categorically say men are better, that for me is a wild and incorrect statement.
As a men
no, and but I disagree because leadership is subjective. Everyone needs to be led differently, right? Especially if you have. There's different businesses, there's different structures. So sometimes a woman leadership is going to be better.
Yeah.
And also, I really don't like to stick onto biases, especially because I'm DEI. So naturally, I would never like to say women in general are more emotional. Because I've met some cold-hearted women.
Same.
I have met some, and I've met some really emotional men. So I feel like you can't. I just don't like general statements. I like to look at people individually. Yeah. What can you bring?
Agreed.
Are you suited for this role for these particular reasons? And sometimes there might be a team that needs a tough leader, and that might be a woman or a man. It could be either, but I think you can't generalize.
Well, I don't think one necessarily negates the other. I think they're kind of for example, every organization has different requirements.
Yeah.
Not every CEO, not every organization needs the same kind of temperament for CEO. Not every man is totally logical. Not every woman is totally. So I think they are kind of nuances, but they are general observed differences between men and women. It is a scientific fact. That is not to say that every woman should be restricted in what she's able to achieve, or every man is kind of limited. But I think what you were trying to allude to earlier is the standard of male strength being seen as this ideal that women have to work up to, which is kind of what they were alluding to in the film, is like the ideal of this sort of physical, masculine, military strength is the pinnacle of what
is a strong woman.
Is a strong woman, and that's not what it is. It isn't.
See, and that's I understand that perspective. My perspective was they say women can do what men can do,
and that's not true.
And then, but I think if a woman puts her mind to some of the things that men want to do, they can do what they want to do. Like in the day and age that we live in now, you can train to do things in a way if you want to do certain things. I know that biologically, yes, we are set up differently, but ultimately, I don't think anyone could do more than what another person can do if you don't train yourself and have the discipline to commit to doing it. I don't think anything's off boundaries for me personally.
To be fair, I agree with both. I agree with what you're both saying. I do understand that there is this ideal expectation that women want to try and get to a place where men are seen as, strong and powerful. Yeah. And I feel like the reason why we want to is because we don't have as much opportunities unless sometimes we're seen in that light.
Exactly.
Like, for instance, women weren't able to vote for a long time because women's opinions weren't seen as valid. Yeah. So we're fighting to get to a place where we're seen as equal, and we're seeing that men are strong in these different competencies, and we feel like we have to replicate that in order to be seen at the same level. Now, I understand that you're saying, okay, women have their different strengths and embrace that. But because we see men having all these opportunities in loads of different fields, we feel like we have to go in the same lane as them to achieve a similar success. Yeah. And I think that's the issue.
But I think, again, because we're not having this nuanced conversation about I'll give you a good example. Some of the stuff we're talking about affects the way in which the different sort of sexes kind of interact, especially when it comes to dating and things like that. So, for example, you get women, for example, who, when they meet a man, they would say things like, "Oh, I run my own business. I earn X amount of money a year." Men don't give a shit about that.
True.
Just literally, it means absolutely nothing to a guy. The guy will be like, "Yeah, okay, cool. What else?" And I think the reason
that is true. That is
absolutely, but the reason why is because we've kind of created this ideal.
But that's a generalist statement. You said you hate generalist statements. That was a generalist statement.
From my experiences.
From my experiences too.
But yeah,
that's
men
true.
don't seem to care about that.
Yeah.
But my point is, there's nothing. But this is the thing. I think we've been. Sorry.
No. You go ahead. No. I talk too much. Go ahead.
No. I think this is the thing. I think that the media and society has led us to believe that generalist statements are wrong when it's not actually wrong. Because there's some things that are just factual. Men are stronger than women. Men are more logical than women. Most of the time, this is the facts. But I think what you're trying to pertain to, and this is what I agree with, in everyone, male and female, we all have masculine and feminine energy.
Yeah.
Men and women. So, for example, I'm a woman. So, the way that we're wired, obviously, naturally, women have more feminine energy than men, and men naturally have more masculine energy than women. But obviously, we have to know how to cultivate our masculine and feminine energy for the appropriate circumstances and scenarios. So, for example, as a mother, of course, I'm going to be in my feminine because that's where my nurturing side is needed. Now, when it comes to work and business as a CEO, I need to be in my masculine. So I know how to put on my masculine. But at the same time, that's me leaning into my masculine energy. Whereas a man who is predominantly in his masculine energy, he doesn't need to lean into it because that's where he rests. Do you understand what I'm saying? Well, that's why in many circumstances, not in all, but in many, a man will be a better leader because he's naturally always in that masculine energy at all times. So I might think, okay, he'll make a great boss. Because the woman now in this scenario, especially if she's a mum, I know when she's going at home with her kids, she's leaning back into her feminine. When she's in the office, she's there. When she's in work, she's the boss, she's the CEO. She gets a phone call from her child. Oh, the school. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, maybe you're not well. Okay, I'll go and pick you up. A man has a tendency to remain in his masculine at all times. Like, he'll get the call. They probably even wouldn't call him. Let's be honest. They'll call the mum. But okay, cool. They can't get hold of the mum. They'll call him. He's still naturally is more equipped or skilled at hopping or staying in his masculine at all times. So, and that's why I'm saying in the generally you'll see that men tend to be leaders because they tend to make better leaders. And I don't think there's any shame or wrong from that. I don't think that's putting down women.
But
there only could be one leader. Why does everyone need to be a leader?
In the same token, a man could be more effective if he actually enhanced more of that feminine energy.
Agreed.
And I think a lot of times in organizations you have male leaders who are so far down the masculine side that their leadership skills are kind of deficient. Now, you do have a lot of people on both sides, like a lot of women go and they have a specialist who kind of helps coach that masculine side. And also you're having that with men who are actually who are having other specialists who work with them and kind of bring out some of that feminine energy to kind of create a balance. Because effectively, I think the sweet spot is we have a healthy balance between both sides, and we can dial up and down both sides,
Yeah.
depending on where the kind of need comes. And I
Yeah.
think society, moving forward in society, that we kind of need more leaders that have both sides. 'Cause
I
work-
agree.
Yeah.
I don't think it's all about the
I've worked with
masculine.
leaders who are too far down
Yeah.
one side, and you're
Yeah.
like, man, your
Both
staff
ways,
are
yeah.
unhappy.
It should be both ways.
Yeah.
You know, so you kind of
Yeah.
need that kind of balance between both.
I agree, and that's why I think the gender statement is incorrect, because I feel like actually it takes work for, say a typical man or woman, to get that balance. So actually I think you need to train as a leader and know what balance you need to have. So I don't think biologically a man's going to be better or a woman's going to be better.
Same.
You need to train and know, understand your people. I think leadership in one company is different for leadership in another company. So I think it's about you having an open mind to say, okay, how do I lead? I even think about myself as a leader, as I am, and when I think about working with my team and at work, I think I'm kind of feminine in how I am. I have conversations exactly how I'm speaking with you now. I say I disagree with this and this is why. I still feel like I'm feminine in doing it. It's just that I'm expressing my opinion. And, you know, I feel like it's the reason why I don't generalise is because I just think you as an individual just need to learn what works in that circumstance. That's why.
One thing I will say is I think sometimes when we use the word masculine and feminine, it can be a bit misleading. I think we need to understand what those two energies are and how those two energies kind of help maximize, you know, the potential for the individual, as it were. So I've had some bosses, for example, who are kind of very, very feminine. They've got feminine energy, but they're men. And actually, I found those bosses to be actually really, really, really good. Really, really, really kind of helped me at certain points in my career.
Yeah.
And I've had other bosses who are women who have a very, what we call masculine energy. And I'm very kind of reticent to use the term masculine, but they've got, and I've found it really problematic with them. There's some of them
I agree.
you know, so again, I think it really does depend. I really think it depends on how the interplay between those two energies. You have a lot of men who are really formidable and very respected in the male sphere. They have very heavy. So there's a guy called Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you know of him. Jordan Peterson.
He's like I think, remember the guy Kevin Samuels?
Yeah.
Right.
He's like that, but he's like a white version. I think, and
He's
more
a lot
like an
softer
older
though. He's
white
a
guy.
lot softer. Kevin Samuels is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's something like I just put them in the same bracket of.
They're kind of in the same sort of, and he is in the sort of male sphere. He's very, very respected. Like he's really respected.
Okay.
And I was listening to an interview with him, and he actually says that he's very feminine. He's got very strong feminine qualities. So he used the term as two characteristics he picked out. One is high in agreeability.
Right. Okay.
And the other one is low in, there's a word he used. I can't remember what it is. I think he described it as it describes it as negative emotion. That's the two things he mentioned. Negative emotion or high in agreeability. And he says he measures very highly on those things. But in the male world, he's a don. He's like, a lot of men really respect him in that sphere, especially in what you call the red pill society, red pill world. He is very respected. So it kind of depends on how it plays. But I think when you're conscious and you're aware of it, you can dial up and dial down those energies depending on where you are or who you're with.
Well, back to the film then.
Yes.
I feel like we've ever went far stretch and we've delved in deep. Do we think that I guess there's going to be a part 2 to this Woman King, or do we want there to be?
It's a better question.
I think there would be a part 2 the way they ended it, because they had the character for the first time. You know, am I spoiling it? Sorry.
No, go on.
Yeah.
We should put a spoiler notice on this video.
Yeah. If you haven't watched it, sorry.
I think we'll probably get out of the cinema soon anyway. But with the end bit, where you hear for the first time the young girl call her mother, that was the introduction of a new relationship there. Because before she had never said that. She said, "Mother, would you like to dance?" And that was like, oh, okay, this new relationship forming. Now, how will this work? And just touching on from what we just said as well, how it relates to the film with the masculine and feminine. That's what I'm saying. The film was called The Woman King, but it was all about celebration of masculinity. It wasn't anything to like. It wasn't a celebration of femininity. If it was, it would be called The Woman Queen. But it was a play into how a woman fits in a man's world, which is the same narrative that a lot of feminists are meant to be against. But they said they felt empowered because they showed women acting and doing things like a man and being called a king. And you felt empowered, but why couldn't you feel empowered of a woman doing things like a woman and being called a queen?
But there was a reason why it was called The Woman King, though.
Go on.
in the film itself. So the role that one of King Gizer's wives wanted to usurp, that was the role of the female king. So it's almost, I don't know if this is traditional within the society in Dahomey, where the king had a core ruler that was a woman. So that was the reason why it was used as the terminology was the woman king. So I just thought.
No, I hear what you mean, but I meant in terms of just as a screenwriter, as a play, as a show, as a movie, whatsoever.
Yeah, okay, I see what you mean.
They could have done a play on that, like you said, like being creative. They could have said, we'll call her the queen.
Yeah.
Because
okay, I see what
a woman
you mean,
doesn't need to have a male title to be powerful.
Yeah.
Like, you could call me Chantelle, you could call me the queen.
Yeah, I know what
as
you
a
mean,
woman, I don't need to be a king.
It's the ideal of the ideal is the male.
Yeah, it's like
it's the same thing.
That same
but
narrative.
Also, it's clickbait a little bit too. Not clickbait because obviously it's a film, so it's more than clickbait. But it's also to get us to watch it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If it was called The Woman Queen, not that we wouldn't watch it, but I feel like it gets more like, oh, what's that about? Like, so that's also another slight reason.
Plays into the current politics.
I
would have called it a different name. Because
what would you call it? What's her name?
I'll call it Slave Raiders.
Right.
Do you know, Akin would just rewrite the whole thing.
Yeah, he would.
I enjoy the film, and I would encourage people to watch it.
Okay.
Simply because that's our first tentative step into making something historical about Black people. And I'm hoping that if it's successful, we can make other ones that don't have the problems. And I think this kind of conversation is really helpful because hopefully other people were like, you know what, we got to watch out for these things in future if we're making a similar kind of film. Just don't lie to people. Don't lie to people. Don't tell people stuff that happened when it didn't really happen. And just be a bit more authentic. And I think if we did that, then the consequent films we'll make better films. We'll make better films. And I hope we do make better films that tell our own story. And hopefully the next historical film we make doesn't have any black-white thing. It's just about us within our society dealing with our own issues. Like they make films outside of race. Totally outside of race.
Yeah.
Totally. Because people just think we came into existence from slavery.
Yeah.
Before slavery, we didn't exist. We're running around with sort of leaves, skirts, and swinging from trees and shit like that.
So you would recommend it. You think there'll be a part two? Do you think there will be a part two?
I don't think there needs to be a part two.
Okay, you don't think there needs to be?
We need to move on.
I think there's been too much backlash.
Wow, okay.
I think we need to move on and do something different.
Wow, okay. That's interesting.
What about you, Alicia?
I want a part two. I do. I really enjoyed the entire film, personally. I think it was great. I was coming out of cinema saying, I'm also very childish as well. So Akin's looking at me like,
no, I'm super childish. I'm the most childish person in the world. I'm like super.
You want another one?
I'm super childish and geekish, bro.
I'll just be interested to see where the storyline goes. Really, like, on a very light note, I'm interested to kind of see how that mother and daughter relationship evolves and what happens, and that's it. So maybe if there's part two, I'll watch it.
Yeah, maybe we'll get that feminine energy in part two.
Maybe we will. They might take feedback as well from us.
I agree.
Say, look, let's develop it even more based on the feedback we've got. So this might be helpful.
Show the negative side of Dahomey
too. It's interesting you're kind of honed in on a relationship.
What's that?
I say it's interesting you're kind of drawn to the relationship, whereas I'm not. We kind of fit into that.
That's feminine energy.
I love pulling on the old heartstrings. So even on my heartstrings, I'm like,
yeah.
You know? But what about you now? What do you think?
I think I'm similar to you. Like, I definitely want to see, ideally, a part two, because I do see the good and bad sides of the film, and I completely understand everyone's points that have been shared today, and it's definitely made me have a somewhat different mindset towards it. But I do feel like part two, potentially, they could right some of the wrongs that they highlighted in the first film. And they can touch on some of the brutality that the Dahomey tribe obviously did bring to West Africa as well. And I also wouldn't mind seeing the relationship between the mother and daughter play out too. And just seeing her grow and become an adult warrior and just some of the challenges that she obviously faced as well. So
well, can I just say for part two, if the filmmakers are watching, can we see Viola get a husband, please? A lovely,
that'd be great.
Lovely man to treat her good, make her fall in love, make her go tender, make her go into her feminine. That would be amazing to watch.
I
agree.
agree.
See that shift, see him come in as a stepdad and protect her and the girl from the baddie in a different way. I would love to see that and see her ruling from her feminine energy. I think it'd be very, very, very interesting. And just seeing how things play out from a different angle. But yeah, it's a brilliant film. Definitely. And I hope everybody that watched it enjoyed it. And I think it's good that, like you said, I've got two beautiful black women by my side that felt empowered. And that is good because, I think there's beauty in being a woman. I think there's beauty in being black. And obviously, as a black man as well, Akin, we're not forgetting you. There's beauty
On the
in
side, you too.
there's beauty in being a black man as well.
You made your presence there.
But I just think it's important for everyone to know, like, as women, especially as black women, you're not masculine, you're not undesirable, you're not unprotected, you're not you're beautiful as you are. You don't need to, if you want to cry, cry. Definitely. Don't feel like you have to hold in your tears. If you want to cry, cry. If you don't want to cry, don't cry. But again, we don't need to try and be like men to show our strength. You're absolutely perfect and wonderful as you are as a woman.
That's beautiful.
I concur.
And, I do agree with that. And also, just like another note to end on, there are some incredible black men out there.
Yes.
Like, I know that this movie doesn't really reflect black men in the best light, but I have an amazing dad. There's Akin sitting over there. I've got some amazing black guy friends in my life. Even your partner Nathan.
Yeah, Nathan.
Shout out. He owns his brand as well. What brand is it?
Blendy.
Blendy.
Drinkblendy.com.
Yeah. So there's some incredible black men out there that are doing amazing things, and we just want to highlight that. And I want to agree with you. We can be strong, black women. But we can also be feminine as well.
Yes, we can, honey. Love that.
We can do both. That was a nice wrap up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For this bonus episode. And I'll see you guys on the next podcast episode.
See ya. Bye.